Hi, my name's Lindy Cowling and welcome to my channel. My website is www.lindycowling.co.uk. My email is info@lindycowling.co.uk. And the title of this video today is Starship Trooper, Galactic DNA Activations. Starship Trooper, Galactic DNA Activations. So I'm sure, like myself, what with the astrological events pushing things along and it being February 2017, that you are almost certainly feeling what can only be described as the updates and upgrades going on. And it seems to be affecting people in different ways. Some people are feeling an awful lot of pain, like body pain, and the central nervous system is going berserk. Other people are getting, really bad headaches, dehydrated, absolutely exhausted, much tireder than normal, either sleeping twice as much as they would normally sleep, or they are virtually not sleeping at all. And there are all kinds of gizmos going on. Now, without going into too much detail on the events this end, and as you know, this is a channel, mine is a channel that is a humanitarian channel, but it's an experiential channel. So everything I share is through my own experience, personal experience, and that of the people I work with worldwide, client-wise. And there have been just so many upgrades going on in the last week. I've never personally known a week like it in my time on this planet. And for me, although I am absolutely exhausted, which you could probably tell by the bags under my eyes, the way it's gone for me is like it has gone for some people, where we're not getting hardly any sleep. And because my central nervous system was already hyperactive anyway, with a fight or flight kind of syndrome, really. When you get upgraded like this, the central nervous system, the CNS, is even more pushed, really. And so anything that you have to do with your central nervous system anyway is exacerbated. So for me, I fell in that category, or fall in that category, of having far more extra and worse pain than is, normal for me, if you know what I mean. So unfortunately, I fell in that category, and I fall in that category, which has been extremely challenging and distressing. But I've recognized what's going on, and somehow it's more comforting if you realize that pain is to do with the process and not something that's gone structurally wrong with the body. It's important for me to say that with these upgrades that are going on at the moment, it's all central nervous system related. And if you happen to be empathic, if you happen to be a primary templator, if you happen to be super sensitive or psychic anyway, all of that is going to be exaggerated and exacerbated, because people with those characteristics use their central nervous system in a different way anyway. It's kind of, it's more sensitive than normal. It's reactive to things more than normal. You really get affected very strongly by things and strongly by energies anyway. And with the energies being so... well, it's not just that they're so intense, and I'll get into that in a minute. They are different. And the difference is, I feel, due to what I've been experiencing this week, that other elements of our DNA are being activated that have been sitting in the background, semi-dormant in many of us, and suddenly they've come online. So what I'm talking about here is the galactic aspect of DNA, or the star being aspect of DNA, which, if we're being really down to earth, even though we're talking galactic, if we're being really down to earth here, to be honest, I don't personally feel there are many people on this planet that have not got star being DNA within their system. And I don't feel there's that many on this planet that actually, you know, just come from this planet, but that they originated from the stars anyway. And that comes into your knowing and awareness as you go up through this galactic state of consciousness within you anyway, and you'll have your own thoughts and feelings on that. But there seems to be a change in the activation of DNA on that side of things. Now, many years ago, I can't even remember what year, it was so many years ago, early 2000s, I was working and connecting with people and having processes done on me that were activating higher levels of the so-called, let's call it human DNA. That was years ago. This is very different to that, and it feels very different to that. And what seems to go alongside it is, like I said to you on a video when I was talking about receiving as a way of activating this galactic consciousness. I think I was on video 3 weeks ago talking about that. Is what seems to go along with this is you are linking into archetypal energy. Predominantly it's presented with a lot of people, it's presented with me as the Egyptian archetypal energy. No surprises there, because that is star being energy. And Sirius has come into focus very strongly in Sirius and the Egyptian archetypal energy, and the lion beings. The lion beings have been appearing on camera for me probably nearly 3 years now. I started just when I was taking photographs. Why is there is a lion face there looking back at me? I couldn't work it out at first. I thought, well, this is very unusual for elemental energy. You know, they're appearing in natural environments mostly. That's something that is an ability that's developed in me now as a natural medium. I can seem to point a camera. I just know where to point the camera and when to point the camera, and all sorts of inter and intra-dimensional images are coming out, really. You know, and I think I'm capturing the inter and intra-dimensional beings there. That's been happening for a long time. In fact, I love it. I don't really think anything of it now. It's been happening so long. But the lion beings seem to be connected with the Egyptian archetypes. And there seem to be a few archetypes there. A big one that seems to be coming into play is Sekhmet. The lion beings, when I say star beings and galactic, for me they're all the same, one and the same thing. So I totally feel that what I'm describing here is all from, is all galactic, all star being, all to do with stargates. For me, loads of input was coming through to do with Sirius, just loads of stuff going on. And there's some stuff I'm not even going to say, I don't feel I'm going to say on camera, because it sounds too sci-fi and woo-woo even for me, and there's not really many things that I don't talk about, and a few of them are a bit personal as well, and some of them I can hardly believe myself, but there you go. It's bizarre, and why I'm bringing this out really is this is very different to activations we've had before. I don't feel everybody will be affected this way. It's if you've gotten to a state in your consciousness where in a way you are ready to do this next bit. I don't feel everybody's been affected like this. And I feel if you've got a certain tipping point of star being or galactic DNA in you, you'll be affected more. Now, also what I'm going to say here is I'm going to say you need to be very, very discerning if there is things like this kicking off for you. And the reason I say this is because I've seen in people, and I've experienced myself, and sometimes people need to learn the hard way, that just because metaphysical representations of energy appear to you, or you feel that you're channeling them, or you feel that you're linking in with them, or you'll feel that they're your higher self, or you feel that they're your guide team, but you're not sure, and then you're linking into them. I've seen many people make that mistake and fallen into kind of little traps really, and it not being the energy they thought it was. Not saying that to frighten anyone or anything. I'm just saying it's common sense to be discerning. And because this felt very different to me in the last few weeks, I haven't spoken about it for the last few weeks, this, because I myself was like, whoa, this is very different. I'm going to slow this down a bit and check this out, because I need to understand, get my head round and understand what's happening here as well. So I was double checking, working with my, let's call it my normal guide team, higher self, because the energy I'm working with on a galactic side of it is different. And now, when I say different, this is not the first time I've interacted with star beings. I've been interacting, it hasn't been so much lately, but the first time that happened was probably 15 years ago. And then on and off, depending on what kind of work I'm doing, different teams come in. So some Arcturians, not so much Syrians, but this has been all Sirius this week. You know, depending on what kind of work I'm doing and all the rest of it. So I am extremely cautious and discerning, probably more than the average person in that field, really. I don't just, because a being presents itself, I kind of check, double check, go with my gut feeling, my intuition, check, double check again. Does this feel right? When something's very different, it does throw you a little bit. It's like, well, this is different to before. But, you know, you'll know if you get warning flags or red flags or anything. Now, it's important for me to say you are a sovereign being, and as a sovereign being, you have full capability and the full capacity. If you don't like some of the symptoms, if you are getting metaphysical input, I'm saying, not some of the body sensations and the awareness and tired or not sleeping, although you can ask your guide team to take the pressure off a bit. You can say, can you slow it down a bit, or take the pressure off a bit, or take some of that pain away a bit. But what I would say is, if you are interacting on a metaphysical level with what you feel to be a big being from Egypt, or a big archetype from somewhere else, or star being energy, or all this kind of thing, and it's very different to usual for you, and you are not feeling comfortable with it, and you're nervous, or it's too quick, or it's too fast, or you're a bit wary, you as a sovereign being, you just have to stand in your power, and you just say, no, not at the moment. Stand back, you know, step back, or slow it down, or go into your own intuition, you know, check with yourself. You have a sovereign right to say, no, not at the moment, or can we slow this down, or can we make this less painful, or I need to understand this first, or whatever. You know, you'll have your own take on it. That's standing in your own power. You're not like a train on a track that, you know, just lets any old driver jump in and drive it. You know, you have to stand in your power as a sovereign being, and you have to be very discerning of like what you're connecting with in terms of your consciousness, and what you're not, you know. So just don't be, I'm not saying you to be afraid of that. I'm saying it's common sense to be discerning, especially when this is very different, and the energy feels very different as well. It is very star being. Certainly for me, I was seeing very vivid imagery of, the closest word I could use is Stargate, but it doesn't feel like the right word, really. And I would call it an intradimensional portal with loads of activity of beings going backwards and forwards between Sirius, which in my imagery covered in pyramids, far vaster than we have in Egypt, and Egypt almost being like a mini tiny little replica of that, but in a tiny form, really, and them going backwards and forwards almost like in a beam, really, backwards and forwards between the two. And I was very strongly getting Egypt being a tiny mini replica of Sirius, but it being opened. Well, the way I'm getting it is it's been open for a long time, but what's happening now is we're able to see it. But the difference is now, the consciousness activating as it is, it wasn't that these things weren't here all along, it's that we couldn't see them. And so as our consciousness goes up, as we're aligning with the things that are helping us, little nudges in the right direction, especially via the astrology elements of things, these little boosts of energy and pushes, nudges, what's happening is we are having that remembering. And as our state of consciousness is changing, we are able to see what we couldn't see before and perceive what we couldn't perceive before. Not that it wasn't always there and wasn't always happening all along. It's just we couldn't see it or interact with it then. So it is amazing. It's also very exhausting, and I found it extremely painful. All sorts of gizmos have been going on, and there's a few things I'm not even going to share because they just sound so woo woo. I mean, even I'm stunned, really. There's just so much going on, and I feel in my gut feeling, and I would say my instinct, and I would actually go further than that, say my knowing, which is why I'm sharing it, is that it's an awakening of the seeds of our DNA that are star being or galactic like, and I guess some of us have more of that than others don't have so much of it. Maybe other people don't have hardly any of that or any of it, and so you'll be affected more by that. It depends on where you are in your own rate of evolution, in your own rate of consciousness. So it's available to all, but not all are at that rate where they're going to be affected that dramatically by it or very much at all. Others are going to be affected very dramatically by it. As always, it's common sense. You've got to support your central nervous system. You've got to support your body. If you can't get the sleep at night, if there is possible for you to get a little bit of sleep in the day, get a bit of sleep in the day. You've got to try and relax. You've got to, I've just spent 2 hours, because I'm not far from the coast, by the sea, very grounding, and in very, very cleans up the energy field, salt water. Another thing to relax the central nervous system, you might have your own herbs and your own natural things. One thing that I use is valerian, which it smells like a baby's diaper. It stinks to high heaven, actually. But it relaxes the muscles, no side effects apart from if you can get over swallowing a baby's diaper. There are no side effects. And it relaxes the central nervous system a little bit. It takes the edge off without it knocking you for 6 and without it having any of the pharmaceutical side of things on it. It's a natural product, which I swear by, actually. But then you might have your own things. And again, grounding, anchoring. Trees, getting near nature, getting in the countryside, getting near moving water, particularly the sea, rivers, streams. If you can't get to anything like that, get to the next best thing. And if you are in a high-rise block of flats in the middle of a city and you can't get to any of it, the next best thing would be to even do a meditation that takes you into nature, or it's like you're near the sea, because that is the next best thing, and it can still work. It can still work. Or if you can get to a park and go in your local park or something, just to be doing things like this, just to balance it out while this is happening. It's a strange way of getting these updates as well, because it's what seems to be happening here is it's more, I'm experiencing it more like a familiar remembrance, really. It feels very new and very different, but at the same time, it feels like it's almost like something you've always known. It's always been in the background, and then it's like, oh, it's a bit different at first, and then you think, oh, well, I've always known that. and it's come to your conscious recognition, conscious competence, the year of being fully conscious. It's come to your conscious awareness, something that was way back in your DNA, really. So it's very interesting. And what I would say to you is, if you are getting more than the physical side of it, like I say, the sleep or the dehydration or the hyperactivity or the feeling like crap, the not sleeping, the sleeping like crazy, pains because when this has been activated in this way, in your, let's call it your normal human form, your normal human form is going to know about it, right? If you caught the flu or if you caught a virus, your human form is going to react like, oh, hang on a minute, something's different here. You know, I've got to fight this off. Your immune system is like, whoa, I've got to almost like fight this off, or I've got to adjust, or what's going on here? Because the energy field as a whole and the body consciousness as a whole will recognize that something different is going on. And I feel it recognizes it more than when the human DNA is being upgraded to its, you know, minimum 12 strand thing. I feel it notices it more on this galactic side of it, because it's different. It reacts. I'm experiencing it reacting to that differently. Not like an invasion has taken place, like invasion of the body snatchers. Not like that. But like, oh, hang on a minute, something different is going on. And so there is a period of adjustment again, adjustment going on there. And again, I'm going to say to you, if you experience the metaphysical side of it, where suddenly it seems to have gone all Egyptian, or you're seeing beings that you didn't see before, or you can suddenly you're aware of this perspective you never had before. Try and keep your logical side there. Try and keep your feet on the ground. Try and anchor it. Be discerning. If something doesn't feel right to you, you are a sovereign being. You stand in your power. You question it, or you know, or your own guide team, or your own guardian angel, your own higher self, your own gut feeling. You know, you can say, okay, is this for my highest good? Or, you know, call in your familiar guides, so to speak. So you don't just have to think, oh yeah, throw your arms wide open. Yeah, you know, I'll go with this. Because as always, with all of these kind of things, there are many activations and many circumstances and many different inter and intradimensional interactions we can have that are wonderful for us, and there is a small percentage that aren't so wonderful for us, and I call them like fleas on a dog's back, you know, and just going to jump in and rub their hands together and say, oh yeah, let's muddy the water here, and let's confuse things, and let's get people running around like headless chickens. So it's just common sense to be discerning, and question that. If it's something very different for you and you're not too sure, you can say no enough, or you can say no, step back, or you can say slow it down till you've got your head around it, and you can, you know, check these things out. But it is, yeah, it's bizarre, really. It's bizarre. Like I say, you can probably see in fact, I can see them, big old bags under my eyes. I think I'm getting somewhere like, I'm not getting more than 2 hours sleep in a hit. And then there's loads going on. Most of what's going on is going on in the night, and there's no coincidence. Most people that are saying that to me are saying the same thing. And that is because you are at your most relaxed. Your analytical mind is at its quietest. That's when most people get that inspiration, or uploads or downloads, or most of the work is happening on them, or they're doing a hell of a lot of work actually in the night. And a lot of those interactions are happening then. And like I say, I'm going to say again, you know, it's up to you to decide if you want to go with that or not go with that. It's up to you to check out in your own gut feeling and intuition, is this malevolent or benevolent? And certainly when these upgrades started happening for me, I'm kind of, I check, I double check, I treble check, feeling into it. If it's not quite what I've worked with before, it's like, okay, how does this feel? Does this feel legit? Is it what it seems to be? and then being sure within yourself, actually, yeah, this is different, but it seems to feel very positive, and it just seems to feel right. And you must do the same. You must absolutely do the same. That is part of learning your mastery. That is part of being a sovereign being, is you don't get led by the nose. You actually, make those choices and decisions and have that discernment yourself. And you have that sovereignty over your own body, your own energy field, your own experience. But yeah, it is a very extraordinary time, and I cannot separate. When I feel into it, there is no separation to me between the Egyptian archetypal energy, the big players like Ra and Sekhmet seem to be coming up tons actually. To me, there is no difference between those and star being energies and stargates and Sirius is all one, and galactic, it's all one and the same. You might not be experiencing it that way. You might be experiencing different names and slightly different energies. The Atlantis and Lemurian energy is all linking with that as well, because it all seems to be linked to the same star being civilizations that seeded, if you know what I mean, seeded here. It's just very, very interesting. It's just very, very interesting. And I'm keeping a really level-headed, as much as you can keep level-headed with all that going on, a level-headed perspective on this, as I always do. I've learned that through life experience. I never used to be level-headed. I used to be very woo-woo and away with the fairies. Not anymore. I am very balanced, very grounded, very anchored, and very level-headed with this stuff. So I am keeping as level-headed as I possibly can, and need to be with that. And I'm just finding it fascinating, amazing, and fascinating. But I'm also very discerning, and I'm keeping a watchful eye of how this is developing, what it's developing into, and what changes that change in consciousness, galactic consciousness, is having for me, and what changes that will mean to my life and the way I work. And I'm kind of like watching all of those things. I'm aware of all of those things as they are unfolding. And wherever you are on that spectrum, whether you're not affected at all because you're just not, it's not that you've done anything wrong, you're not at a state of consciousness where you're wishing or able to access that at the moment, or whether you're in the middle of it, or whether it's mostly the physical symptoms of it, that you're bouncing off the walls, absolutely exhausted, not sleeping loads, eating differently or not eating, or all sorts of things as the body and your energy field tries to adjust. I would just say, like I say, just kind of like keep a wary eye on how it's unfolding for you, and support your body where you can, support your central nervous system where you can, which is going into hyperdrive with all of this going on as well. Support your body where you can in all the natural ways that you possibly can, really. I would choose first, and then just take it from there. Like I say, no week is the same as the week before any longer for anyone that's on this fast track now. There is no week the same as the week before. There isn't for me, which is why when I am planning things that are a few months ahead, I am almost leaving it till the last minute to finalize something, especially if it's something like I'm going to speak at an event or something like that, because every week my consciousness is changing. So what I do 2 or 3 months time is going to be very different to if I did it next week or even today, because I'm changing that quickly. And you will get to a stage where it doesn't knock you for a loop anymore. You just assimilate in it. I've been surprised how strong these are, but I think we're getting just so much at once, and I really feel it's because it's got that galactic star being element to it. The way, I hesitated there because the way I got that again is almost as if if you say that the star being element of it, the galactic element of it, is part of us, but it hasn't been activated for a long time, and our human DNA has, it's almost like the human DNA responds to it as not a contaminant or a virus, but it's the easiest way I can describe it. You know, when the immune system is triggered to like, whoa, there's something different here. Not in a negative way, but I mean, that's the impression I get, that there's not a tug of war between human DNA and star being, but there's a readjustment, a really big readjustment. It all seems to play through the central nervous system. So what I'm going to say is, as more of that becomes apparent, I will share. There's a couple of bits I haven't shared here because really that's personal, and like I say, I don't feel it's right to share it. But as that develops more, if it doesn't just plateau and balance out, maybe it'll just plateau and balance out because I'm quite balanced about it. If it doesn't plateau and balance out, you know, I'll be the first one to shout, or if there's a different side to that revealed, I'll be the first one up there, you know, talking about it. What I would say, just before I finish this, is I've also become aware, as when you're interacting with these archetypal big energies like this, big Egyptian energies, for example, there are many archetypes, so I'm just using them as an example. I feel this is where people get tangled up and confused, and when they activate through a state of consciousness, when they're linking with a big, for example, Egyptian archetype, that's where people can become very confused and go a bit destabilized and think that they are that Egyptian archetype, and hence you get where you get 20 people across the world all maintaining that they're a particular goddess, or well, you'd have far more than 20. I just mean 20 personally that I've interacted with. Or you'll get a whole pile of Cleopatras across the world, and you know, you can either say, well, they're all delusional, or you can say they're all tapping into the archetype, that archetype of energy, and tapping into that in their consciousness and linking to that in their consciousness, which I much rather go along with. Some people go very unstable with that. I can't tell you how many people contact me claiming to be certain major gods, goddesses, or actually God or Jesus, or any of these things, and all variations of them. And usually when they contact me with that claim, they're not usually particularly well balanced. They're usually not balanced at all. And I feel what happens is, if you're not stabilized in your own consciousness and in your own being, when you link with massive archetypal energy like that, in a way, if you're not kind of, like I say, balanced already, it can destabilize you, and you can get tangled up with actually believing fully and 100% that you are that archetype, or you are this, or you are that. 100% you are that. That's not to discount, you know, in a tiny percentage of these people, maybe they are those things, but you can see where I'm coming from. I can see how people destabilize like that. This also links in with the spiritual ego. I'm seeing this going off the charts in people at the moment, where they get a little taste of something and they run with it, completely destabilize. When a big awakening happens to you like that, and you go up in the levels of consciousness, it can and does affect many people that way. Early on, because it first happened many years ago to me, it affected me a bit like that as well. You go a little bit off your head temporarily. But I've had years now to balance these things out. But I see it, I can see it clearly in who it's happening to and who it's not, even if they don't realise it themselves. And many of these people are out there in the public eye. I can see it clearly, where it's coming from, where it's not coming from, if it's coming from ego, if they're being influenced by something, if they're, you know, totally mistaken in something, and got lost along the way, if they've got this belief about themselves and they're tangled up with something else. But hey ho, it's all part of learning. It's all part of your mastery. It's all part of it. But I think that's worth mentioning, because when you are upgrading in levels of consciousness like this, every massive upgrade, it tips you like this, and then you either capsize or you tip for a bit, then you come back into homeostasis, you come back into balance. You tip another one, then you come back into homeostasis. And kind of the more these upgrades happen, the less you tip, and then you don't capsize anymore. You don't even hardly tip at all. You just adjust a little bit, you know, like this. And again, that's all part of your sovereignty. It's part of your mastery. It's part of getting used to going up these rungs of consciousness. And like I say, just to close really, these ones are pretty big. Personally, they're the biggest upgrades I've ever felt on my time in this planet, you know. So they are big, and they are having a very big effect, because I feel it's globally, you know, universally, we are opening up to that what has been semi-dormant kind of DNA in a different way, and it does feel different. Even if there's a familiarity to it, it does feel different, and it's very expanding, far more expanding than our normal human DNA, because it's galactic, it's Starship Trooper. You know, it's like, ooh, it's not this perspective or even this perspective. It's like, whoa, you know, out in the cosmos, looking back down. And of course, you can see where people are just going to go trippy with that and off their head with that for a bit. And so you have to try bring yourself back down to earth, earthlings. You do have to do these things. Balance, 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 balance. Balance it out. Balance the woo-woo side of it out. Be discerning. Do the natural things to just stabilize this, and give yourself time to stabilize it while we go through this extraordinary Starship Trooper process. On that note, I will love you and leave you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing to this channel. Thank you for booking sessions with me. Take care of yourself. Look after yourselves. Especially take care of yourselves at the moment, because there is a lot going on. And I will be back with you on video soon. Lots of love. Bye.